And in the latest attempt to prove they are not anti-Semitic, the UK is managing to go against that again, specifically the city of Birmingham, where Maccabi Tel Aviv, the Israeli football club, was supposed to be playing. Well, their fans are being banned, or, well, the story is developing, but originally this story was that the fans of the Maccabi Tel Aviv club were basically banned from coming over safety and security issues. People might remember, for example, last year where Maccabi Tel Aviv played in Amsterdam, and the local Palestinian or pro-Palestinian community went, and I'm now quoting, on a Jew hunt. This is actually something that we've recorded, something we knew was happening. So yeah, the security issues are, we cannot offer security over the Jewish people coming in because the population might go and try to kill them. This is not some third world country. This is not some Arab country, or this is not like Ramallah. We're talking about Birmingham, I believe the second biggest city in the UK, or definitely one of the biggest cities in the UK. This is the state of the world right now. Later, and we'll cover the developing story, and later we'll also bring up yet another person being flagged or being arrested by the police for wearing the Star of David, for basically potentially, I think I have a quote of what exactly he said. Um, uh, ta- 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 Basically like antagonizing the pro-Palestinian group by wearing the Star of David. So welcome to the reality show. Joining me today are Stuart Margolis and Anders Ingemarsson. And I'll go to you, Stuart, first. I mean, we've seen more and more of this kind of stuff, but in a sense, this almost seems like anytime something like this happens, it seems like something new. But it really is disgraceful. I mean, the idea that not only, I mean, there's one thing if the city said, hey, it's gonna be like crazy, so we're gonna put more policemen on the duty or something like that. But this is straight up, you are not even allowed to come for a away game if you are a Maccabi Tel Aviv fan, or if you are from Israel. So yeah, Stuart, just so people know, I think the original, this banning came from like a week ago. So, but the story is developing. So Stuart, any opening thoughts?
Um, yeah, I mean it's not really surprising when you look at the cowardice of the West going back, to at least to Salman Rushdie, to the original fatwa against him. Uh, the response in the West has largely been, um, we don't have the ability or perhaps the will to protect the innocent. So the solution then is to, limit the movements of the innocent, and because the thugs, the guilty, are too powerful or too out of control or too difficult to deal with. So the easier course is just, just don't let the innocent people uh, into your country, or don't let them into your protest or whatever, so that to make law enforcement's job easier, I guess.
Yeah, and Anders, I'm just wondering, like, what is the end game here? Like, if let's say there is a city which now seems to be basically like a no-go zone if you are a Jewish person, or if there is like a Jewish event or some event where Jewish people might be interested in coming in, well, basically this is a no-go zone you shouldn't go for. What is the end game of this? I mean, if you have like a specific parts of the city, and we've seen this more and more, right? I think Paris, especially, or France itself, is infamous, I guess, for the so-called like no-go zones. But like, what is the end game? Like, if we leave it alone, will in decades, years, suddenly they will be integrated? Suddenly it will be friendly to go in? And that's what do you think?
Yeah, no, it's, It's hard to say what the end game is. I mean, where this will end up, but I mean, the trajectory, the direction is obviously bad because it is more and more infringing on both the freedom of speech and freedom of movement. And when it comes to the local authorities here in Birmingham, in this example, I mean, on the one hand, you can understand them because there is probably an imminent threat to the Israeli fans if they would come in. Birmingham, I don't know, but I would assume that it's a fairly large concentration of a Muslim Palestinian supporting population there. Now, that is not an excuse for not allowing them to come, but I think my reaction is that it shouldn't have come to this. And I think Stuart's point of, the fact of the representatives, if you like, of Western culture, ever since Salman Rushdie, have been weak, has been the strategy has been appeasement. And that, of course, never works. And we can see that ever since how things is continue to slide downhill in both in terms of protecting the freedom of speech and of movement. And if you want to raise a larger question here is really, and this is more from an objectivist capitalist society standpoint, is that one of the fundamental problems in this is that there is something we call the public square, that there is a lot of undefined property that we all have a right to use. And there are rules around whether you need a permit to demonstrate, and then you need a permit to counter demonstrate, and so on and so forth. And we'll probably get to this with this man who was wearing the Jewish star. But from a principal point of view, and if you look at the shining city on a hill, there wouldn't really be any public property, and any private property owner could decide for himself if he wants to allow someone on his property to demonstrate for this or for that, and allow counter demonstrators or not. And in a situation like that, you would say that the owner of the football stadium, which also would be private, can determine this, and then they would have to, largely inside the area of their property, ensure the security. Now, I think in a society like this, it would never come to a point. We would not have reached this situation that we're in. So what's the end game? Well, it probably will get, I'm afraid, worse before it gets better. But I think in the British example here, it's the entire society that is at fault. Politicians, both on the right and now on the left, with the Keir Starmer government in place, continue the appeasement. And if you're a representative of a local authority, whether you agree with the direction or not, whether you are a DEI inclined person or not, I can understand that on the ground that they make this decision. But again, it's just another example of the continuous decline in this area.
Yeah, and the whole way this sort of event is going through, and I've been saying this again, when it comes to the rise of anti-Semitism, it would be one thing if the security concerns over football club fans. I mean, like concerns over hooliganism are like appropriate, right? But that's not what is happening here. It's not that the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are being banned from because they are like hooligans, or because they bring a lot of troubles to the city. It's because other people are targeting them. Similar way to the rise of anti-Semitism, right? It's not because now it would still be wrong if you target Jewish people because Israel is doing something wrong. But Israel isn't doing something wrong. Israel is doing something right. And when it's doing something wrong, it's by not going strongly enough when it comes to the war. And that is what the Jewish people across the globe are being punished for. That is what the sports club, I mean, we've covered even recently a bicycle club in Israel is forced to rename itself to basically, appease appease people who, yeah, protest against the anything connected to Jewish people, anything connected to Israel. So, yeah, I mean, Stuart, what, like, when it comes to, I always bring up the example of, Muslim, anti-Muslim rhetoric or hatred after 9/11. The idea that you go after every single Muslim because of 9/11 is wrong. But now we have this, like, I think even much bigger hatred for the Jewish people for, you would think they did something horrible. You would think they drove many planes into pretty much every skyscraper in New York, but no, it's nothing like that. So, the idea of like where is anti-Semitism coming from can be a discussion for a long time. But yeah, what is with this immense hatred and sort of like on every level, right? This is not the government, this is like a city council, and we have like many different things. We have like protests like on every level, right? We have the leadership, the protesters, so like the people, the city councils, like every single aspect of life is against uh, Israel and Jewish people.
I mean, you would have to go into the whole history of anti-Semitism. I think what you're seeing is the fact that it never really went away. It just kind of went underground and became disreputable after World War II. But it's reemerging. It's been long enough since World War II. Most of those people that fought in the war are dead, and so it's coming to the surface again. But I do think it's a mistake to assume that the decision of the Birmingham Council, whoever made this decision, that decision is coming out of anti-Semitism. I think it's more likely, I mean, I don't know, of course, there may indeed, almost certainly there are anti-Semites there, as they seem to be everywhere, unfortunately. But I suspect the decision is more coming out of the same cowardice that we've been talking about, that the West just not knowing how to stand up for itself and how to defend its values. I do, and as Andrews pointed out, this is in the larger context of the failures of the entire government in the UK to stand up to the Muslim extremists for years. So you can't expect that Birmingham on its own is going to, be the ones that take a firm stand and say, we're going to defend the Israeli tourists against our native-born extremists. It is cowardly, but it is also in a context that is understandable. Given the circumstances, I think it would be. I would be much more sympathetic to Birmingham if they had issued a travel advisory, basically, warning Israelis that we will, of course, do our best to protect you and to uphold the law, but there are these elements here, and we can't be everywhere. And I think a warning would have been appropriate, but banning them as opposed to the people that are actually going to be causing the problem, that's just unjust.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. A super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And a new member, Wolfguy22. Thank you so much for becoming a member. So, I mean, yeah, this idea, like, where does it come from? Is it appeasement or is it anti-Semitism? But at the end, when you put it as an aggregate, if you put it all in together, well, it doesn't matter. The result is, Jewish people are being murdered in Western countries. There are Jew hunts in Western countries. They are basically disallowed from traveling. And even when they do travel, you have things like the Hind Rajab Foundation that goes and tries to find every single Jew around the world and basically point at them and say, either wink, wink, do something about them, or try to put them to authorities for supposedly, committing war crimes in Gaza. So, yeah, you have this continuous thing, and somebody has to stand up. And if nobody does because either, they do support it or because they are simply cowards that are not willing to stand for it. I mean, we draw parallels with the Nazi Germany, but when Kristallnacht happened, doesn't matter if, the people who saw it happening were simply cowards who didn't want to stand up to it or were actively supporting it, if it is indeed happening. And something separately I wanted to bring up is this I don't know if you guys seen like the sort of like meme slash basically like anti-Semitic blood libel, which is something like, if you get kicked out of one country, that country is wrong, but if you get kicked out of 108 countries, there's something wrong with you. And the sort of thing is, apparently this is like this like anti-Semitic trope that Jews were kicked out of 108 countries. And if it did happen, maybe it's something with the Jews. But no, maybe people are simply hating Israel and Jewish people for existing. In a similar way, when we think about the rise of anti-Semitism, like what drove up the rise of anti-Semitism? It wasn't Jewish people doing something bad. It was October 7th. It was the fact that a terrorist organization attacked Israel that drove the rise of anti-Semitism. So it is this thing of where basically if if people hate these people so much, well, maybe there is something to it. There is this sort of narrative. And Anders, I'm wondering, what do you think about yeah, it's almost this like second-handness, right? Well, if everybody like hates the West, if everybody like hates the Jewish people specifically, many people go, well, maybe there's something to it. I mean, why else would there be like so many like anti-Semitic like tropes, even like straight up, crazy stuff?
Yeah, so I think, I don't think the October 7 is the cause. I think it was more of a catalyst. It may have speeded it up, but I think we were already before that on a trajectory, on a direction towards more anti-Semitism. And something you could argue has been going on for quite a while, right? I mean, we put a lid on it, as Stuart said, after World War II, because of the atrocities that took place. And then, as freedom spread and wealth and well, relative freedom, I should say, it didn't surface as much. It has always been there under the surface, simmering. And to me, it's the canary in the coal mine of a larger issue, and that is the turn of society in general towards more collectivism, more tribalism, more statism, and as repulsive as anti-Semitism is in and of itself, we need to heed that warning for society at large, because we're heading in the wrong direction pretty much everywhere. And if we don't reverse that direction, yeah, anti-Semitism will get worse, but tribalism, collectivism, statism overall will get worse, and freedom will shrink. Freedom of expression will be curtailed more and more. So it's really important here to focus on trying to reverse that trend, I think.
Stuart, any thoughts on sort of the rise of anti-Semitism and the causes of it?
Yes, I think you cannot understand anti-Semitism without understanding a principle that Ayn Rand identified, which is a hatred of the good for being the good. What is distinctive about the Jews throughout history? They're an incredibly small minority of the population worldwide, I mean, minute, and yet they're incredibly successful. You look at, any Hollywood movie, any art, anything in the arts, it's 20, 30% Jewish in the end credits of a movie sometimes. Why is that? Well, it must be a conspiracy. It couldn't be just that something about the Jewish culture inculcates a respect for success and education and money, respect for money that is absent in a lot of cultures. But I think that's what it comes down to. The Jews have managed, despite everything, to be incredibly successful, and that breeds resentment. And I think that more than anything, you can also go back to, they killed the Jew, they killed Christ, the Jews were responsible for that. But I think that's a very small portion of where it's coming from. I think it's coming much more from this suspicion and hatred of success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Envy.
And
The envy of success. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that many, especially Muslim people, care about, that supposedly the Jewish people killed Jesus. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, to go a little bit back to the main story. So something that has happened afterwards, since so something you have when it comes to away games for football clubs is oftentimes there are tickets reserved for fans of that particular club that that club is saving. So I think usually it's like 5%. So in this case, like 5% of the seats in the Birmingham stadium would be saved for the Maccabi Tel Aviv club to sell to their fans. Now, since of course the fans are being banned from coming in, those tickets are not going to be dispersed or not going to be reserved. And Maccabi Tel Aviv afterwards came up with a statement that even if they were allowed, that basically they wouldn't claim them since they are now worried about the safety of their own fans. Which absolutely makes sense. Like, if this didn't happen, it wouldn't be a problem. But now you're driving attention to it. Now you're saying, okay, we are going to ban these people from coming in. And if this ban is lifted, it does put the fans in danger because you've already put towards it so much more attention that it should ever get. The prime minister, of course, came up, saying that he's deeply saddened about this whole situation and also about the club's decision. He said that banning away supporters based on nationality/religion was the wrong approach. But he is the prime minister, and this is the kind of culture that is being put forward more and more. We'll go in a second to a clip talking a little bit more about, again, a man who was arrested for basically wearing the Star of David. But before that, Stuart, any last thoughts on this topic?
No, I think I covered it.
Anders?
No, just to make clear that we for our English British listeners here, that we're not totally ignorant about soccer slash association football. So we're talking about Aston Villa Football Club from Birmingham playing Maccabi Tel Aviv, right? So we're talking about Villa Park in Birmingham, not the home stadium of Birmingham Football Club, which is a separate club in that city, I believe.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's a good clarification. With that, let's watch this video. I have it on YouTube. Let's hope it plays well. And I think I'll pause a few times. But first, I'll play a little bit and let me know if you guys can hear it okay.
What necklace are you wearing?
Was that heard okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's play.
What necklace am I wearing?
Yeah.
Star of David.
Because the officer details this in their statement.
What, that I've got a Star of David?
Yeah.
So?
They felt that the actions that I've just mentioned about going up close proximity to the pro-Palestinian protesters.
Can I speak to my lawyer for a second?
Of course you can.
I'm able to...
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about this question about the Star of David.
Why are you concerned?
Well, I think I'll have a private consultation and we'll set out my concerns.
Okay. The time is...
Okay, so I stopped after the first part. So just look at the way this started, right? Do you know what you're wearing? Wearing the Star of David, and the way the police officers was basically like, yeah, so you know what you did. Like, I mean, Stuart, what is happening here?
Well, the idea that just wearing a piece of jewelry would be provocative, I mean, okay, that's kind of weird that would involve the police. I mean, is provocation a crime in Britain? Or, I mean, what does that even mean? If you have free speech, you can say all kinds of provoking things. That's not a crime. If you're inciting violence, that's potentially a crime. But being provocative, I mean, any good speech is provocative in some way. I mean, that's otherwise why are you bothering to speak if you're not provoking some sort of reaction? So I don't know, maybe one of you knows the British law better, but I mean, is there some law on the books against provocative speech? I mean, that just seems bizarre to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know specifically about the law. Maybe I can quickly look it up. But we've seen this before. We've seen this. I think it was the leader of Stop Anti-Semitism. Maybe somebody can remind me in the chat where something similar happened, where a policeman stopped a Jewish man, or I think the sort of top person behind Stop Anti-Semitism, and they said basically you should not probably be here because you are quite openly Jewish. That phrase was became very popular, and I think the idea is that it's basically like disrupting the protest, or that it possibly like inspires some violence. That if you go as a Jewish person to a pro-Palestinian rally, to a pro-Palestinian protest, you might basically inspire some sort of violence, some sort of thing. So I'm not necessarily sure if it's like breaking the law, rather than maybe the police is just trying to make sure nothing bad happens. But again, that is a scary world where simply wearing the Star of David, I mean, again, apply to anywhere, anything else, wearing a cross, right? Or wearing any other religious thing. Again, we are not talking about, even something crazy like somebody wearing swastika and like going to whatever, like a BLM like protest, or something like that. We're talking about a person simply wearing a sign of their religious affiliation, and that is like a provocation. I think that will be in the next thing. But yeah, Anders, any opening thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the impartiality of the British police force here. So you brought up the fact. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anybody would stage a pro-Israel rally in Britain today, and I showed up with my cross, as you said, and my crescent moon. Would they, or whatever a Muslim person is wearing around their neck, would that be seen as the same type of provocation, or is that something that they would just let pass? Now, disregarding the fact that if there would be a pro-Israel protest, I think the anti-Israelis would be out in force. And how would they deal? How do they deal with that? Maybe we have some concrete examples of it. I haven't really followed the details of the British protest scene, but it seems like, again, there is a particular focus on Jews, and I mean, it's this police officer is trying to go out of his way in this interview to say that this is not an expression of partiality or whatever. But yeah, I'm just curious if they would treat the opposite case with the same fervor. I suspect not, but yeah.
Yeah, so this is I quickly asked ChatGPT, but I've seen something similar in before. So it's specifically Public Order Act 1986. in Section 12, it applies to public processions. It gives a senior police officer power to impose conditions if they reasonably believe the procession may result in serious public disorder, serious damage to property, serious disruption to the life of the community, or intimidation of others. So it seems relatively broad of basically being able to do so. And yeah, I think the idea is that simply being a Jewish man, as we've seen sort of like I think that now it might be like a year ago or a year and a half ago with the "you're quite openly Jewish," or with this example of wearing the Star of David, that yeah, that is like a provocation for the pro-Palestinian protesters to do something. And I think, Stuart, this goes back to the sort of Birmingham example of like, oh, the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans cannot come in because we are not able to guarantee their security because some people just want to kill Jews and or hurt Jews, and this is something we cannot work. I mean, what again? We're not talking about like a third world country. We're talking about United Kingdom. What does it mean where simply wearing the Star of David is considered a provocation enough for the pro-Palestinian crowd?
It's horrifying. It's become completely accepted and then hence acceptable that this whole population is rabidly anti-Semitic, and that we need to cater to that for public safety. Part of the problem is that the police, the government, and I probably most people don't understand what the proper function of government is. And this idea that the police need to just do whatever it takes to make sure that things don't get out of hand. It's like, no, that's not the government's job. The government's job is protecting rights. This man has a right to wear whatever he wants to wear and to walk down the street. And if somebody is going to interfere with him, they are the initiators of force, and that is who the government should be then arresting or taking in for questioning, not the guy who's wearing the Star of David. Again, it might be appropriate for a policeman to like tell this guy, look, you're going to upset people with that, and we will do our best to protect you, but you need to be aware, this is a very volatile situation, or the same thing I suggested with Birmingham, making them aware of the situation in case this guy which isn't the case apparently, but if he was just an innocent, or not that's the wrong word, but if he unknowingly just as a Jewish guy wandered into this protest, that would be, then it would be appropriate for the policeman to say, hey, are you aware of the situation here? But still, the policeman's job is to protect that person, not to bring them in and arrest them for provocation or whatever. That's just, it's ridiculous. It's a complete inversion of what should be happening in a free country.
Yeah, and again, sort of, applying this properly everywhere. Does this mean that basically the UK doesn't allow counter-protests? Because at least for me or in my country, counter-protests are like the biggest thing you do. Whenever there's a protest, there's always a counter-protest. If it's a pro-Russian sort of protest or something, you have pro-Ukrainians somewhere giving their side of the story or giving their information. If it is even something like a Pride march or something like that, you always have some like Christian group or somebody like that doing sort of a thing. So what does this mean? That basically nobody can ever, because like that is the same thing that can like inspire hatred, right? Inspire antagonism. If you have like some sort of a Nazi rally, are black people basically not allowed to come in? Because whoa, what will the Nazis do when the black people come in? So the black people should now get arrested for the same thing. I mean, yeah, Anders, do you like it always seems like it's specifically targeting the Jewish people, because if you apply this to like anywhere else or everywhere else even, then yeah, it basically means that if somebody decides to do a protest, and I guess this goes back to the sort of like tragedy of the public property, right? If one group decides to do a protest in London, well, for that day, pretty much everybody else doesn't have free speech, doesn't have the right to assemble because, they are antagonistic to what's going on?
Yeah, I think it's disproportionately impacting Jews in Great Britain, but it's not only Jews that are impacted, because we have this other example of the woman who was staging a silent protest, anti-abortion protest, I think, outside an abortion clinic, and she was, you know, at least arrested both times. So this is not limited in the UK. I think the problem in the UK is the hate speech laws that are very. I mean, one of the problems, the hate speech laws are an expression of a larger problem, obviously. But if you look at the concrete level, the practical level, the fact that they are exist in the first place, the fact that the UK doesn't have a First Amendment, and those hate speech laws are being interpreted or modified to be more and more intrusive into the lives of people, and how you can, what and how and where you can express it. But fundamentally, again, it goes back to the fact that there is one aspect of it is that there is such a thing as public property, and when you have to adjudicate between these different groups, then politics always comes into the situation. And at the national level in the UK, the anti-Israelis are a larger electorate than the pro-Israelis, unfortunately. At least that's what they are. At least they're the loudest. I don't know what the polls say about the general British population. So obviously, or obviously, unfortunately, national politicians, they are weighing that into the equation of what they will support or not. It's despicable. It's very it's the word I'm looking for, unprincipled. And I'm sure to some extent the local politicians in Birmingham, in this case, they weigh the pros and cons here as well, in addition to then actually fearing for the safety, because their police force wouldn't be able to protect these visiting Israeli fans.
Let's watch a little bit more from the video.
It's 0209 and I'm pausing the interview. My line of questioning, first and foremost, is not to offend, it's not to discriminate. I want to have that on record. I'm not asking that question to cause you any offence. However, if we'd have proceeded with my line of questioning, the officers have noted in their statements that they believed that because the Star of David was out and present to people, which may take either offence to the presence of it, they felt that that was antagonising the situation further.
Okay, well, I'm going to say that I think that's, with respect, appalling and shows a complete lack of ignorance on behalf of those officers.
Okay.
Because if they were familiar with the fact that IJAM were organising the protests, then they would recognise that how could a Mogen David cause offence, notwithstanding the fact that we shouldn't be in a situation where people can't walk around wearing a sign of their religion. It's not like. So I do have a great deal of concerns with the officer's response and the line of questioning, but I've recorded it on tape.
So, to that point, I myself, and I believe for the Metropolitan Police Service as well, I don't believe that anyone has acted with a view to cause anyone an offence. However, we're talking about we're not talking about wearing a Star of David. I don't know what you're referring to, a Mogen David?
Yeah, sorry, a Star of David.
Star of David, I haven't heard that.
Apologies.
We're not talking about walking around with a Star of David chain on his neck in a open forum in public generally. We're talking about a very niche environment where tensions are high, where two sides are coming together, have adverse opinions, adverse views. That, I think, we can't open it up to say anyone can't walk around wearing what they want to wear. We're not.
So Yeah, here we, by the way, the way it is started, I do not mean to cause any offense. I do not mean to, like, offend you. Like, what is this? Like, this is, I do not mean to discriminate. Like, it's such a weird, I don't know, maybe you guys have a different opinion, but such a weird way to, like, start, this whole thing, especially when something he's doing is absolutely, offensive. And yeah, y- you know, he said that, it is about sort of like these groups coming in and you know, the tensions are high, and I do understand that to some extent, that yeah, basically if you do have a protest, tensions are high, you're trying to like limit it. But so I do not necessarily mean to even come after the police who did that, more talking about the culture. Like, yeah, I understand that, you know, people can go, things can really easily go out of hand when it comes to protests, when it comes to like any sort of that thing. But again, what we are talking about, that it might be potentially offensive, right? It's him being a Jewish man wearing a necklace with a Star of David. I mean, for me, somebody waving the flag of a terrorist organization is much more offensive. I mean, they should get arrested if we are talking about, if again this thing is like carried out properly. Because what does the Palestinian flag stand for? Or what does the Palestinian ideology stand for? It is for the wiping out of Israel. What are we hearing from this protest, right? From the river to the sea. That is calling for the destruction of Israel. That is calling many times for the killing of Jews with a in a very roundabout way. So sure, if we wanna say that, you know, we do have a public property, some people protest, and we are trying to like keep the peace, well, maybe go first after the people who are actively spreading violence, who are actively trying to promote violence, than people who are simply existing. Stuart?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. That it's complete inversion. Instead, you know, you don't stop violence by arresting the potential victims of violence. You go after the people that are initiating the violence, but that's too hard. There's too many of them, or they're too violent, and or you know, there's all kinds of excuses why they don't. Part of the problem is that the government has let this go so long, has been so conciliatory towards the extremists, that it has empowered them. If I don't know how many years ago, but you know, if when the huge influx of Muslims to the UK began, the UK had been firm in, you know, making sure that these people followed the law, not, you know, just looking the other way when there was, you know, honor killings or what, you know, there's just a lot of stuff that happens that they have not prosecuted the way they should have. If they had done that, and if they had encouraged integration into the society, rather than this kind of multicultural idea as a, well, they're entitled to do things the way they've always done them, you know, it's their culture. It's like, no, their culture is bad. Their culture is evil, and if they want to live in a civilized society, they need to give up those cultural traits. Not all of their culture, not, you know, not there's lots of parts of the culture that are wonderful, but you can't have them violent in a free country. You can't just look the other way towards violence. What you end up empowering them, and then we end up where we are now, where the police are actually afraid of them because these groups feel empowered.
Anders, any thoughts on this?
I'm going back to the canary in the coal mine. You know, this whole development, and again, the direction of it is something we shouldn't talk about specifically. Well, we should, but we need to keep the larger issue in mind, and the fact that society is moving in the wrong direction, and that's where we who are empowered by a rational philosophy that actually clearly sees what is going on. We just have to continue to hammer home and make the make the argument and make the case for reason, for individualism, for the protection of and respect for individual rights, and obviously as a social system for capitalism. I mean, unfortunately, you could say there is too much material to to use to make the rational case for how things should be instead of how they are. And I think it's important for us to point out both, I mean, what is the state, where do we want to go with this, but then also, you know, map out what is a possible way of remediating this. And in this particular case, yeah, I'm not sure. I think as an American, I think we need to use the British example as just a warning, that, you know, that because we're seeing it here too, the rise of anti-Semitism, and both on the left and the right, the increasing authoritarian tendencies, and Britain is we should use it as a warning, as an example of this is where we're heading, and hopefully that can slow it down and hopefully reverse it at some point or another, and then that the Brits can get inspired for that reversal that hopefully will take place in the US, and learn from that, and start to improve the situation over there too.
Well, with that, Stuart, do you have any last thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Anders. I think the canary in the coal mine metaphor is a good one. I think whenever you see a rise in anti-Semitism, it's accompanied by a rise in tribalism, in statism, in anti-rationalism, or irrationalism, I should say, or anti-intellectualism. There's a movement towards all of these things that is very evident in the US, and unfortunately really does seem to be worldwide. So yeah, we need to pay attention to anti-Semitism, but largely because it's an indicator for larger, bigger, more systemic issues. You can reach me. I have a Substack, stuartmargolis.substack.com, and I am also on Facebook.
Anders, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
No, those were my last thoughts. You can find me on Substack, andersingemarsson.substack.com. My book, Think Right or Wrong, Not Left or Right, is available on Amazon near you.
And with that, we have the Irreplaceable Spark Conference coming up this weekend, where, among other people, you will be able to also see Anders. So check out objectivism.co.uk. Tickets are still available, and there will be I also recommend checking out the ARCUK's mailing list, which you can find in the description, since in the upcoming days there will be more stuff coming out about the conference. And you can, I think there's also a mailing list on the website, again, objectivism.co.uk, just few days before it starts. So make sure to get ready. With that, thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye-bye.